Hello. So I'm going to invite Thomas to this live, and it's going to be posted as per usual. Now, this is going to be, we'll go over in quite a few episodes just because it's so important and it can relate to everything. We'll be talking about inner work, how the inner work works, taking ownership, values, core beliefs, and how what happens in here really affects your journey, how it affects your results, and how you could actually be the one holding yourself back. So we're going to start off. Hello, Thomas. We're going to start off talking about taking ownership, what ownership means, and how you can pretty much relate this into your life with those around you. And the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about, because self-sabotage is such a big topic, is you need to let go to be able to become. You cannot become if you're still clinging on to old failures, old failed diets, old this, old that. You need to actually let go of all of that stuff, forgive yourself for who you were then, to become who you are destined to become, like your potential. Your potential doesn't exist if you're still living in your past. So, hello. Let's start our little talk about what you're most passionate about, which is the inner work and ownership and values.
Yeah, where do you begin with that? Because it all obviously links together, as you've spoken about. I think we discussed that ownership is really the most important principle in virtually anything that we want to achieve, particularly change, because if we don't accept 100% responsibility for outcomes or situations, then we've always got a scapegoat, right? And so ownership doesn't mean that all of your problems are your fault. Sometimes they are, often they are. But yeah, ownership says that regardless of what's happening that's out of my control, like I'm taking responsibility for the situation, for the change. And so in the context of obviously who you want this to be relevant for, which is, you know, your clients who maybe are struggling with changing, their nutrition, their training habits, whatever it is, it's like the opposite of taking ownership would be blaming everyone around you and saying, well, I can't eat differently because my family want to do this. I can't train more because of X, Y, Z, because I've got to do this, got to do that. Whereas taking ownership is going, whatever the circumstance is, it's my responsibility to adapt to it and respond to it and get the thing done that I want to get done.
So
I suppose that's probably the best short summary of taking ownership.
So when it comes to people taking ownership, I guess we see a lot of people who say they'll do something when they're ready, or they'll say, oh, once I get to this stage, then I can actually start. Or they'll be like, once life settles down, or, but I'm such a social animal, I can't start now. Or I'll have to do it after this social event's over. I'll have to do it after this. I'll have to do it when this happens. And there are other aspects of, and then there are other aspects of taking the ownership where it's you're not conscious of what you're currently doing. So you blame the diet itself, or you say, oh, well, this person is doing this, or I see this person doing intermittent fasting and they can eat whatever they want without realizing that it's probably eating in a way that gets them to where they want to be. But you think, oh, I can eat whatever I want because that's how they're losing weight. Like you're only seeing what's on face value. And because you're doing what you're seeing in social media, or what Dr. Oz says, or what the magazine says, or what some other guru says, like cut your carbs down, you're not realizing that it's your approach that's failing you. You're not failing.
Exactly right. And it's, as we spoke about, I think you and I spoke about this, that ownership is also just being very objective and looking at, as you just described, like looking at, like, if you're blaming the method and saying, well, that person did, like, to use your context, that person did intermittent fasting and it worked for them, but it doesn't work. Like, if you're blaming all of the methods, or you're not looking objectively at whatever I'm doing isn't working. So people tend to go, oh, I'm like the oldest trick in the book. The oldest thing we ever hear is someone says, I eat really well. I eat so well, but I'm not losing weight. And it's like, well, objectively, if you're not losing weight, or you're not feeling healthier, or you're not getting the results you want, then objectively, whatever you're doing is not working. And so you're probably not eating as well as you think you are. You're probably not eating in the, like people say, oh, I'm eating in a calorie deficit, but I'm not losing weight. Well, that's not taking ownership, because ownership says, I'm not losing weight. So obviously I'm not doing the right thing. Do you know what I mean? And so, but as you said, it's being able to kind of detach yourself from that, because what we tend to do is tell ourselves stories and say, well, you know, this is just who I am. I'm not very good at this, or I'm never going to be able to change, or whatever. And we start telling ourselves stories about this is who I am based on what I've been doing in the past, as opposed to detaching yourself from it and going, like, obviously whatever I have been doing isn't working because I'm not getting the results I want. That's okay. That doesn't make me a bad person. That doesn't mean anything about me. I just need to actually get really objective and look at what am I doing, and whatever I'm doing is not working. Take ownership of the fact that it's your actions that are getting you there. And realistically, as we're going to talk about it, that comes from beliefs and things like that, and identity and stuff. But it's like the opposite of ownership is when people go like they want to blame external factors outside of themselves, rather than just accepting, like, this is what I'm doing, it's not working, detach myself from that, doesn't mean anything about me, and now let's just do something about it, which is where having a coach or someone, you know, a third party is obviously very valuable.
Yeah. And yes, Katrina just said, oh my God, me. And that's the thing. Like, I had this chat with her. It took me, was it a month to get you signed up with me? It took a month of going back and forwards with her, because she's like, oh, what about this? I'm like, where did that belief come from? And it's like, you know, like, you can know what you need to do, but not be doing it, but you're still not taking ownership of it, because it's like you're living in fancy dancy world, or you tried a million other coaches, and let's just not call them coaches. Let's call them trainers and people with I'm an idiot sign on their forehead. Trying other people that preach different ways, that it's their way, one and only, and they don't really have an explanation for why it is that way, and it doesn't really fit with your lifestyle. So if someone's going to say, like, you're not going to have carbs are bad for you, fruit's bad for you, and you're this person that freaking loves carbs, and now you're scared of carbs, but you've been craving it all week, and then you're going to binge on it. Oh, it's my body, I just can't lose weight. But you're not taking ownership for the fact that you just binge there. Like, there are people that don't actually, like, weekend calories don't count, that type of mentality. And then taking ownership of their actions. Oh no, it's just the hormones. Oh no, I have PCOS. Oh no, this, oh no, that. It's like, that's the biggest thing you hear. And I've had, like, PCOS, you are not a victim to PCOS. You are not a victim to menopause. Your approach is just not working for you, and there are ways around it. Those things make the journey harder, but you're not taking ownership of the situation, and you just want to play victim to it and just say, oh, I'll just eat whatever. And that also comes down to, like, emotional eating. You're not taking ownership of your emotions, which is probably the biggest factor we can talk about. And you even said, oh, I'm not this person. This is where the identity is going to fit in. And we're going to be talking about all of this, and we're talking about it at the moment. Like, who is it you want to become? Because it's like, I want this, I want that, I want fat loss. Well, then why are you still doing all the same shit that didn't work for you before? You saw a fad diet on the internet, you tried that. Okay, that didn't work. I'm trying this fad diet. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. The more that you try things that restrict versus thinking in a mindset of abundance, the more that you are going to be restricted in a way that, like, if I say don't think about a blue car, you're going to think about a blue car. If I say don't look at anything that's red, you're going to friggin' try and pick out everything that's red, like this thing over here. Like, the more you, the more that you take something away from you, the more that you're going to be food focused on it. Like, I only got the smallest carb drop from Luke. Like, he only dropped my carbs a tiny bit, but ever since dropping my carbs that much, I can't stop thinking about food. All I want to do is a freaking 10,000 calorie cereal challenge again, which was not even in my mind once I had my carbs back to what actually fulfilled me. And now that it's not there, all I want to freaking do is eat. But I haven't strayed from my diet whatsoever. I've drunk more of these than I ever do, which is diet cordial, and I'm probably being more of a rabbit on lettuce. But the reason I'm able to be so, we'll talk about discipline as well, but the reason I'm able to be so disciplined is because I've developed that identity. You think I want to run when it's storming and when it's 6 degrees outside. That's not motivation. That's not even just discipline, because it's the identity I've created of I'm not a quitter. How am I going to feel after I finish this? How will I feel if I do the alternative and not do it? Balancing up those feelings. How do I want to feel? Like that is my driver. I am my own inspiration, my own motivation, because I know how I want to feel. So maybe we can talk more on that part of extreme ownership, the feelings, and doing the things that we do have.
Really good. Yeah, totally. That's a really good like segue or a shift in thinking when you start to understand that we're responsible for our own feelings and our internal world. Because I think we're always kind of raised on the idea that feelings and emotions are sort of entirely at the mercy of things outside of us. And we kind of just it's when we use language like this thing made me feel X, Y, Z. And it's like, no, we created that feeling ourselves based on our interpretation of it, just stories and all that stuff. But as you said, it's you taking responsibility for how you want to feel rather than going, well, that's taking ownership, as you just described, is going, it's raining outside, and not taking ownership would be going, well, it's not my fault that it's raining, so therefore, I'm just at the mercy of the weather. Whereas you being responsible for your outcomes is going that life is always going to present you with all of these challenging things. As you said, sort of at the start of the chat, that people tend to fall into this thing of, we all do it. I'm saying this from all from experience, not from, we all do this stuff, but we fall into the trap of going, I'll start being better with my training and nutrition when life settles down, when I don't have this particular thing in the way or this particular thing in the way. And it's like, if that is doing you, because you are never, ever going to get to a point in life where everything is nice and settled, perfect, and the circumstances are exactly as we want them to be, and there are no obstacles and there's nothing getting in the way. And so if we're continually going to be, I'm waiting until I'm ready, waiting until, and again, I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone else here. I have my own challenges in this space, just not necessarily around training and nutrition. But if we're continually letting I'm going to wait until external things outside of my control are all nice and sorted, then we're screwed. We're never going to get anywhere. Whereas taking ownership is going, regardless of external factors, I'm going to work on developing an identity of the person who gets this stuff done no matter what. Because, we all tell ourselves stories around, I don't have time, I don't have time for this. And it's like, well, that's not true. We know that people who value stuff highly enough will get it done one way or another, and will make time for it, which you're someone who has an identity of, get to a training done, even when it's raining, even when, you're running a coaching business and you've got 105 things going on, but your training is important enough to you because at an identity level, you don't know any other way to be. You identify as someone who takes her training, takes her nutrition, all that kind of stuff really seriously, who is a leader, and you have an identity of, I am this person. And so you're someone who gets that stuff done, takes ownership and gets that stuff done no matter what's going on externally. And I think that's the point that hopefully anyone watching this needs to take away, is that until you have that identity level of, I am someone who values my health and fitness highly enough that I get it done as a high priority, then you're continually going to be at the mercy of, work's busy at the minute. My family are annoying me at the minute. This is happening, X is happening, Y is happening. It's not to say that we need to be super intense, military kind of seriousness about it all the time. But it's just working with, okay, these are my circumstances. These are the things I can't change, but it's still your responsibility to work with what you've got. Do you know what I mean? So, it doesn't, obviously not everyone watching this or not every one of your clients is going to want to train an hour a day, 6 days a week, because they don't, they're not taking it as seriously as you are, and that's okay. But they still need to have a mentality of, well, regardless of how busy work is, regardless of this, regardless of that, regardless of the fact I've got a long commute to and from the office, regardless of the fact that I've got kids and this and that, I need to have an identity of someone who works with what I've got and still gets 20 or 30 minutes of training done a couple of times a week, or obviously it's all relative to that person's situation. But I'm saying that, like, if we forever have this approach of, things outside of my control are dictating my actions, then we're never going to get anywhere, basically.
Yeah.
And the identity stuff, the identity level stuff is what makes sure that we take those actions, or that we prioritize that stuff highly enough through the shitstorm.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying thank you to one of my girls. She's like, Ruby has a machine mindset, and that's why I love having her as my coach. And I was just going to touch on that just then, because I did not start off this way whatsoever. And that's another thing with the priorities, because you touched on priorities and values. And when I started out, I used to have the greatest anxiety when I was in the gym and when I was training, because I always had a million things on my mind. And I was always worried about messaging clients, managing client stuff. Like, I had a million things I wanted to do, because my clients, to me, like, because I freaking love what I do so much that my clients are everything. So they were always on my mind. But over the years, I've realized, unless I start the day with myself and time block, I'm looking over there because I have my whiteboard with like my time blocks. But unless I have my time blocks, and I'm giving to myself at the start of the day and giving to myself at the end of the day, I'm not setting the tone for how I want to feel and the person I want to be. I cannot give my best in responses, in quality to all of my clients if I am not doing that. I cannot be the inspiration of a machine mindset, like she said, if I'm not actually putting in the work to myself to do that. And someone said before, what did they say? They said mental training. Like, this shit doesn't come like that. Like, you need to do the mental training. Your brain is a gym, just as your body is a gym. Like, you need to work on your identity. It doesn't happen overnight. And like Flynn was saying, yeah, okay, cool. So I might train an hour 6 days a week, 7 days a week. Or I might train 2 hours on one random day, or whatever my training entails. I might be crying and like killing myself through a session, but just because I'm doing something doesn't mean everyone needs to fit their block into my mold, if that makes sense. Like, you're trying to fit it into the mold that you want. There are other people out there that get paid for this stuff. Like, they get paid to train. People sponsor them for all this random shit. Like, that's their living. And yet we as people want to look like them, want to live like them, aspire to be like them, and it doesn't actually fit your lifestyle. Or like I said about the low carb approach, does that fit your lifestyle? Is that something you can sustain? Do you truly value that? Because you say that you want these things, but do you really? Because if you did, you would actually have more of a drive to get there. You need to be realistic with yourself. Take ownership of where you are right now, what resources you have right now. If you do not have enough resources to take that first step, get a coach, get some help. People are too busy these days to actually get the right information you need, because something that I got told from one of my clients, which helped a lot in saying this to all my others, is, Ruby, you have all the answers. You know exactly what to say all of the time. But sometimes I know that I'm not ready to listen. I'm not ready to listen to what you have to say. So hearing it again and again and again, maybe 3 months down the line, I might actually click with one of the things you said. And that takes the first step, and then it just leads to all the rest. So I can have all the answers. The books in the library can have all the answers. Like, there is plentiful information on there, but why are we all still struggling? Because not only are there controversial things out there, but we aren't ready for those answers. We know not to eat pizza every single night before bed, yet there are some people that eat pizza every night before bed, knowing that they shouldn't. We know that probably stopping home at KFC or Macca's or wherever you're listening from, the In-N-Out Burger, on the way home after work is a bad idea, because you're probably going to clock up like 1,000 calories in one meal. Like, you need to be real with what your priorities are.
That's a perfect example of someone, if someone does it, like, you know me, you know my nutritional philosophies. I eat everything. No foods are off limits in my books. But just in that context where someone wants to lose weight or feel healthy or whatever, but they still do that stuff. But what typically will happen if they're not taking ownership is they will make excuses and they go, oh, well, I'm really stressed from work, or I'm really time poor, or I don't know how to cook, which is like nonsense, because we can all learn how to cook food that tastes okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be a master chef to learn how to cook food that kind of tastes okay. And if you have a growth mindset and believe it, but how, right? And so that's an example of like I'm not opposed to getting KFC on the way home, whatever. That's, my philosophy. But more so that in that context, if the person's doing that, at least take ownership of it and go, yeah, cool, I did that. It probably wasn't conducive to the goals that I'm trying to achieve. It's cool, but let's not tell it, because this is now taking ownership of our internal world. Let's not tell ourselves a story about how this is who I am. I'm just a quitter. I'm just, I'm like, this is just who I am, and what's the point? I can't change it. We're telling ourselves a story about just the fact that we made a mistake, or we gave in to cravings, or whatever. Let's just move on from it. A couple of things, like not tangents, but related to the ownership thing, based on what we spoke about in the last couple of minutes. I wanted to quickly talk about gym anxiety. You mentioned it very quickly, and it's a topic that a lot of people I speak to. It's like one of their biggest challenges is the gym is a really intimidating place. I get it, fair enough. And I wanted, in terms of, again, taking ownership of our internal world, the thing I've identified far and away is that the most judgmental people in the gym are the beginners, are the people who think it's a weird environment. Do you know what I mean? The people who live in the gym, the people who are like really confident in that environment, are not judgmental, or most of them are not. They're usually just happy doing their own thing. The people who are most anxious in the gym are the people who are going, everyone here is so obnoxious. They're all dickheads. Look at the way she's dressing. I hate how he's acting so attention seeking. They're all intimidating me. And it's like, when you have that, take ownership of what's going on inside your head, and you realize you're the one who's being so judgmental, no wonder you're anxious in that environment. You know what I mean? Now, of course, being more confident with technique and having a program and all the gym doing stuff, of course, being able to do that is going to help your confidence. But I've identified that there are plenty of people who've lived in the gym for a long time, who know how to lift and all that stuff, but are still nervous in that environment. And 9 times out of 10, they're the ones who are being judgmental. Like, oh, he's so obnoxious. The gym's full of all these, arrogant people who are attention seeking, whatever, and they intimidate me. It's like, well, no, you're judging them, and then assuming that they're judging you to the extent that you're judging them. But also it's because they're judging themselves, right? If you're in that environment, you're like, oh, I'm so lazy. Oh, so I'm so weak, or I'm so unfit, or what, I can't. You're playing that comparison game of, I should be here with my strength, with my fitness, with my muscle, with my technique, with my whatever, but I'm here. And you're playing this big comparison game and you're judging yourself. Well, it's no wonder that you're also fucking terrified of everyone else judging you. You know what I mean? Because you're judging them and you're judging yourself. No wonder you're so afraid of judgment, right?
That really touches on just one quick quote. When someone judges you, it says more about them than yourself. And the same goes for you when you're judging other people in the gym. That's just proving that you do not have the self-confidence within yourself, which is something that we will talk about either in this episode or another one. But if you're judging other people, look within you and stop complaining. Start taking the action, because complaining over and over again isn't going to get you anywhere. You need to actually be that person. Like, once you have confidence within the gym, and stop, people keep trying to pick out their pet peeves. I don't have any pet peeves at the gym except people that don't put freaking deodorant on. That's my only pet peeve. Like,
I always say that the only people who get, a lot of people are afraid of being judged in the gym. And fair enough, because I get, it can be an environment where you're like, oh, I don't know what all these machines are, whatever. Like, you can understand people are intimidated, but hopefully something that's reassuring if you're someone who is a little bit fearful of judgment in the gym is that the only people who get judged are those who negatively impact someone else's experience. So you're leaving weights all over the floor, you're, intentionally making way more noise than is really necessary. People who are sort of impacting someone else's experience, everyone's going to kind of be like, fuck you, stop that. Can you not stand in front of the dumbbell rack when I'm trying to get to it? People who are doing selfish, inconsiderate things, that probably draws judgment. And probably fair enough. But if you're just a beginner who's stepping in there and just having a go, no one's looking at you being look at this. They're looking at you being awesome, good on you for doing something positive for yourself. And even if they are judgmental, this is the thing, right? Like whether we like it or not, there are going to be people who are unkind and are being judgmental. We know that it's reflecting the reflection of how they're judging themselves. But even if they are judging you, like if we're so worried about their opinion, then we're inherently saying that, you know, that person's opinion is worth more than mine. And so something I've found really useful for myself over the journey, but I think is really helpful for other people as well, is to get in your head that is to not forget that you have this entire life and this entire element of yourself outside of health and fitness. Do you know what I mean? So you're in that environment. It's like, yeah, I'm not the most fit or strong or whatever person. I'm in here, I'm having a go, but I've got all this other stuff in my life going on, and all the like awareness of your strengths, I think, is really important. Like it's a self-esteem thing, right? If you're aware of like all of the great things about yourself, and you have a really high overall, you know, self-esteem, self-confidence by actually giving yourself credit for what you do well. And we can talk about that whole other episode if you want. Then when you're in the gym and you're seeing someone who's like way, you know, fitter than you or stronger or more confident or whatever, the stuff that normally kind of sparks comparison, you can look at that person and go, yeah, cool. I see them. I'm inspired by them rather than like intimidated. I'm inspired by them because we have a growth mindset that we believe we can do whatever they've done. But also we're not playing this comparison game of only comparing that person's physique to your physique. Like you're looking at them and going, yeah, like, okay, they've got more muscle probably because they value training more than I do and they've valued it for the last decade. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, that's a whole other tangent around values, right? And sort of look like being objective, we spoke of that, and taking ownership and going, I don't have the particular physique and strength in the gym and all that stuff that would make me really confident here, because taking ownership of the fact that I haven't spent a lot of time training for the last 5 or 10 years. I have been eating a certain way for the last 10 years and I haven't spent much time in the gym. I haven't put in the reps to get the confidence. And that's okay because you had other priorities. That's fine. Do you know what I mean? It's when we're attached to how things should be. Like I'm attached to, I should have more muscle. I should be more consistent in the gym. I should be fitter, because you're comparing your values to someone else's priorities. Do you know what I mean? You're seeing that person in the gym, as you said, like we're seeing people in the gym who've got, you know, like the physique that maybe makes someone feel intimidated or like jealous or comparison, whatever. And you're not looking at the fact that that person has really highly valued health and fitness and has made lots of sacrifices in that regard, like, you know, for a long time now. And that's why they're further ahead, and that's okay. It's when whereas if you can sort of be objective and take ownership and go, look, this is where I'm at because I had other priorities, or like, you know, my current results reflect my current behaviors and priorities over the last, say, couple of years, then and you're no longer just comparing like your physique or your whatever in the gym to theirs, because you recognize that you're two very what's the word, you know, diverse people who have all this stuff going on besides just health and fitness. And yeah. I don't know if I've articulated, but if I can get that point across, I think it's really helpful for playing less of a comparison game. When you have 100%. Awareness of like, yeah, I don't spend hours in the gym every week because like I've got other priorities and I've got kids, or I've got like my job is more important to me, or like I you know, have a little bit more body fat than I'd like because personally I really enjoy you know, spending my weekends going out partying a bit more. That's a higher priority. Cool. Like accept that, rather than thinking that you should be acting differently. Like if that's a higher priority to you, okay, cool. That's now we need to address, do you want to change your priorities? Okay, that's fine. But like if not, then just accept what your priorities are, rather than being attached to, I should have the same priorities as that person that I'm jealous of in the gym.
That was actually a really perfect thing you just said then. So like there are people that would complain about where they're at, or not being able to actually lose that last little bit here or get that extra bit of results. Like you're complaining about something, yet you're still not willing to change what it is that is causing that. Like if you're still going to drink a whole bottle of alcohol on the weekend and you don't want to give up certain things, then it's taking ownership that, okay, I need to be okay with not getting my results as fast. I need to be okay with maybe not being able to reach a certain level because this is what I'm not willing to change. This is my priority. So we will talk more.
And the important thing is that that's okay, right? Like it's okay. If you have a higher priority, if you want to socialize a bit more, you want to party a little bit more, you know, whatever, like that's fine. Like it's when we judge ourselves and go, oh, I should be so different. I should be more like them. And it's like, well, it's just accepting that you might have different priorities and you really highly value now we'll segue this into the social circle thing, but you might really highly value the friendships that you have with the people who you like to go drinking with every Friday night, right? Or every Friday, Saturday night.
But it's you can still change that story. You need to know what you want more. You need to know what you want more, because if you do want to have a certain body there, realize that there is more outside of socializing than just getting drunk or drinking alcohol or food. Like, you don't have to. I'm going to talk about the attachment you spoke about, because it's attaching yourself to certain things. Like, I know a lot of people who would attach social events to going out for lunch, going out for dinner, going out for breakfast. That's an attachment. That is a connection that you have made to going out. But why not go for a walk? Why not go for a coffee? Why not go for something else and still have that same attachment? Like, you need to realize what it is you value in that weekend. Is it the social aspect? Do you like feeling like shit the next day because of whatever the hell you did that weekend? Like, yeah, it is okay. Every choice you make is okay. But what is it that you want the most? Do you want to live a certain lifestyle? Then get clear on that. Visualize that lifestyle. Know what you need to change in your life. It's not about stopping. It is about shifting. Yes, I want to have my friendships strong, but I don't want to ruin my lifestyle of health, fitness, and avoiding disease, avoiding this, that, the other for the sake of that. But I want this friendship. I don't want to lose my social network. So why don't we shift that into, okay, what else can we do that we both want to do? I was listening to a podcast today, actually, and this lady got asked by her mum to watch some stupid theatre thing that she wasn't into. It's about knowing when to say no, but it's not just no sometimes. Sometimes you can say no, but she wants to spend time with her mum, but she doesn't want to go to the theatre. So what she said, so they had a conversation and they went shopping instead, because they both wanted to go shopping and they both wanted to spend time with each other. Like, what you're saying yes to means you're saying no to something else. No is a powerful word, but if you still value that thing, add on that but. It is so important. And once again, the attachment. I loved it. It was like,
that's the trickiest thing, right? Like, as we spoke, or we were going to speak about, like, one of the biggest factors, and we have to take ownership of it, one of the biggest factors in our behavior and in our results is going to be the people around us. Like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time, whether we like it or not. The people that we spend the most time with are going to be really influential on our results, or on our behaviors, on our beliefs. And so we can have all of the values and the intrinsic motivation and the identity and all that stuff. But, like, if you spend all of your time with friends, family, whatever, who simply don't value the stuff that you want to value, it's not impossible, but you're fighting this real uphill battle to sustain a certain lifestyle if everyone around you wants to be different, because we're social creatures. Like, we naturally want to be part of the tribe. That's what we do. But you make a very good point that that's taking ownership of the situation and communicating becomes key. And going, I want to maintain these friendships, but I don't necessarily want to spend every Friday night sending it with these guys, because that obviously isn't really what I want to be doing, or that doesn't conflict with your priorities. But taking ownership of it and communicating with people around you and going, like, let's do something else that is more conducive, but let's just maintain that friendship. But as a broader thing, I think, particularly for your clients who maybe are battling with the self-sabotage thing, or feeling like they're really trapped with being able to change their nutrition or their training, whatever, is like they have to take ownership and look at, okay, like, I need to get, if they have a partner, like, they need to get their partner on board. Like, there's no two ways around. Like, your partner doesn't have to be eating the exact same way as you and training as much as you. But if they are unhelpful, if you're trying to, you're wanting to home cook meals most nights, and they're going, no, let's just get Uber Eats. Let's just get Uber Eats. Like, you're wanting to go to, like, the gym, go for a walk after, whatever, I don't know, Sunday morning, and they're going, no, I just want to, like, send it Saturday night and then be hungover or something. But, like, that's obviously going to make things really difficult for you to sustain long-term change. And so taking ownership goes, I need to communicate with the people around me and maybe get them on board. Maybe they want to train together, or go for walks together, eat a certain way, whatever, but at the very least they need to be supportive. You know what I mean? And again, if the people around you are not supportive, then it's our responsibility to go, okay, who in my social network can help me with this? Like, do I have a close friend who has the kind of results I want, has the kind of values I want to embody, trains as much as I'd like to train, whatever, and can I like reach out to them and like set up an accountability thing? We'll message each other. Well, obviously that's also why people like generally hire a coach or something, because it's a person to keep you accountable, support you, all that stuff. But the thing, at least I've identified over the journey, is that you can have a PT, but if your family and your close friends and stuff aren't particularly helpful in this space, then having a PT or a coach isn't going to really get you there. I mean, you need to have those around you kind of supporting you and that kind of thing.
I really want to talk on that note, because you touched on this before as well, where you have a life outside of nutrition and fitness. People are so myopic and so focused on health and not health, on the food they eat and the training they eat, that it's like the only thing you think about. It's like, no, you have a whole life around that. You might have kids, you might have a partner, you might have all of this other stuff. And it's not just that gym workout. It's not just that the food that you're eating. Like, you need to actually look outside of that and realize just how much doing one thing impacts other things as well. Like, okay, maybe I can shift the focus to working on just the relationship of it. It's that communication. And I actually forgot what I was going to say, so I'm going to go back to that attachment thing. There was something you said, and I'm like, no, that's freaking brilliant. Damn it.
But the gym anxiety thing, like we're attached to how, or like the comparison comes from when we're attached to how things should be. You know what I mean? Like I think I should be more consistent with my training. I should be eating a certain way, or whatever.
It's like, who says
in the gym and you see this person who's got certain results that you kind of want, and you're attached to, I should look like that. And it's like, if you act like, the opposite of attachment is acceptance, right? Is going like, this is where I'm at, is being compassionate for yourself and accepting where you're at, because wherever I'm at is just reflective of what I've been doing for the last couple of months, couple of years, lifetime kind of thing. Because those, like this is where understanding values is so important, because when we know what our values are, we can go, well, yeah, like I have been doing X, Y, Z because I value X, Y, Z. I understand that. And so like, we're no longer attached to, well, I should doing X, Y, Z because everyone else is doing X, Y, Z. But everyone else has different values. Right?
We definitely need a whole episode for the whole episode will be on the visualization for sure, and the social aspect of it all. But I just remembered what I wanted to pick on. You mentioned the PT. So you can have a PT, you can have like that one workout, but people think that this is where it came from. People think that workout and that food is everything and that's all that matters. They're not realizing that that's like 1 hour, like however long you train for, that's like 1 hour out of your day. It's probably like 6 hours, maybe 5 hours of your week. And like the easier you make meal prep for you, the less time that consumes you as well. I meal prep on a Saturday now. It hardly takes me any time. I just need to do my toast and my oats, and everything else is prep. Like, it takes up such a little part of your day. You need to actually think, okay, cool, but what actually influences my results the most? It's the stress, it's the sleep, it's the mental training. Like the mental, this is where I really wanted Tom to talk on the inner work, because so many people, like, I could give little nuggets to my clients, and because it's not something they can see an immediate benefit from or see a physical result from, like, okay, I just ate my food, yum yum, okay, I just train my muscles, pump pump, because you can't see that immediate effect from doing the little inner work, that you dismiss it so easily. But then as soon as you get into the routine of it, you actually start to see the results. You start to feel different. You start to feel empowered, stronger. You start to get more in control of your food, of your habits. You start to feel like the person that you want to be. And then as soon as you start to feel like that, and then what happens afterwards though, because you might start to feel like this person, and then lose sight of all the stuff that you did to feel like that person, and then just focus on the physical again. And then you wonder why you get back to square one and then wonder what the hell's going on. Like, you need to keep doing the things that got you to where you are now and realize how important the inner work is. So maybe you can talk more about stories, inner work, and especially the biggest part is letting go of who you think you were, and all the mistakes you made to become the person you want to be through inner work.
So maybe if we understand why our brains, why we have stories and why we have like identities and stuff like that, because our brain likes to be able to predict stuff. Like, first and foremost, it's keeping us alive. That's why, like, when people say, oh, I just, like, when we prioritize happiness too highly, that's when we tend to maybe mess ourselves up, because we're trying to feel happy 24/7. But in our brain's priority, first and foremost, is just don't die. You know what I mean? And then things like happiness and stuff kind of come second. And so we tell ourselves, or like, we get stuck in stories and attached to things because our brain can use them to predict stuff. It's like, if I have a story about who I am, then I can kind of predict how I'm going to act next time. I can kind of predict what's going to happen. That keeps me safe, because our brain wants to be able to predict stuff. That's why, like, we get really fucking anxious and fearful when we're out of control and we can't, like, predict things. You know what I mean? And so we get stuck in these stories because the story is reliable or predictable. You know what I mean? And so that's why we have to be aware of the stories, because we create these stories about ourselves that this is who I am, I'm stuck in this, I can't change it, whatever, which is not true. It's just a story we've told. And so that leads into the be, do, have thing of, if we want to change something and make it sustainable, right? Like, we need to become that person. Because you were talking about, like, if someone does a workout with their PT or whatever, let's say 3 hours a week, but obviously everything they do outside of that is much more impactful, or is very impactful. And so they need to become the person who values health, values fitness, values training, values the stuff that's going to get them to where they want to go. And so the be, do, have model of behavioral model of change is what we tend to do, is we go, once I have, to use the context that is relevant to your clients first, once I have more muscle and less body fat, and I have better energy, and I have, like, the health and fitness that I want, once I have that, then I'll start being more consistent with my training. Then I'll start meal prepping more. Then I'll start looking after my sleep and my stress, and I'll start going for daily walks. And once I have that stuff, then we all do it. We all fall into this trap of, like, once I have the outcome, then I'll do the things, which is backwards, because the only way we get to the outcome is to do them in the first place, right? So the be, do, have model is, like, if we bring it back to, you know, our stories and kind of relate to our identity of, like, we will always fall back to that. So we need to identify, okay, so if I wanted to have that outcome, if I wanted to have greater fitness, more muscle, less body fat, more energy, more health, more, all that good stuff, who would that person be? Like, what would their identity be? How would they feel on a regular basis? What would they value? And what stories would they tell themselves on a frequent basis? And then we need to start doing that now. Like, it's really tricky, because it feels like you're trying to be someone you're not, but that's kind of what it needs to be. We need to be that person now and be feeling the way they would feel and doing the things they would do. And then we get to have the outcome. And so that's probably an overview of that, is, like, if someone wanted to have those outcomes, we need to look at, okay, who would that person be? You know, they're someone who, like, I guess it's useful if someone
use yourself as an use yourself as an example. Use some example, like actual examples, because I know you're so good at this shit.
Okay, I'm trying to think of, I suppose, so years ago, I went through, like, a deliberate fat loss phase, about 5 months. I was like, I wanted to lose about 8 or 9 kilos, get really lean, run this half marathon that I was training for, and also, like, still be training in the gym and kind of retaining muscle and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to have the outcome of being, like, very lean, being able to run a half marathon at, like, a certain pace, have a certain amount of muscle, whatever. And so, but I was very clear in my mind of what that was going to look and feel like. And I was so clear on what are the behaviors that get me there. And I was sort of, in my mind, I already was being that person, because 5 months before that half marathon, I was tracking macros, I was meal prepping, I was running, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week, whatever. training in the gym like 4 or 5 days a week. Like I was already in my mind, like being that person because, and doing those things 5 months out. And then you just do it for 5 months and suddenly you have the outcome. But it's like, it probably helped a lot that because I had just started studying PT, like, and I had in my mind the identity of someone who is a leader in terms of health and fitness. Do you know what I mean? Like I had in my mind an identity of someone who, like is good at this health and fitness stuff, who is a leader, who does this stuff to like lead and inspire others in terms of the health and fitness and training. So I had that identity of being that person kind of even before I got there. Do you know what I mean? But I already was starting in my mind of having that identity and knowing, well, this is like obviously I'd been running and lifting for a few years and stuff, but like I was taking it probably more seriously now.
But it's being realistic with where you're at.
Yeah, it was an example. It was, yeah, I guess that was an example of like, hey, this is where I want to get to. This is 5 months out. This is where I'm at now, but this is who I need to be. And I want to be that person. Like this is, language and story is kind of the same thing, that people need to be really aware of the terminology they use about themselves. If you're saying like, I am X, then you're going to really battle to maintain behaviors that don't align with that person. Do you know what I mean? Like if you've got a self-image of like, I am lazy, like you've told yourself I am lazy, or I am not very good at exercise, then you're going to find it really fucking difficult to be consistent with exercise and training because that doesn't align with who you are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The stories you tell yourself end up becoming your reality. So if you already set yourself up like you're going to fail because you failed a million times before, or you're so stuck into the identity you have now. I'm going to talk about identity soon. You're stuck into the identity that you have now. You're going to give it less effort because you've already told yourself that you're going to fail. You already told yourself that you're not going to be this person. So take ownership of where you are at. Be realistic with the work that you need to do to get to where you need to become and then get there. I will give an example of a client. She was always struggling. She had the worst sleep, worst moods. She was never seeing changes in her body, blah, blah, blah. And I kept telling her it's the fact that she's not sleeping and she's stressed out and she's overworking herself for 3 jobs. Who exactly do you want to become? Do you want to feel so dead all the time in your energy? Do you want to feel like you can't give enough of you to your kids? Like you're literally clinging on by the straw. You don't want to feel that way. How do you want to feel? Okay, cool. You want to feel that way. What action steps do you need to make? You need to start prioritizing priorities. Prioritizing sleep. Why? Because you're going to actually start feeling better the next day. And I know you listen to Andrew Huberman. He talks about this neurologist talks about the effects of dopamine. And you need to actually give yourself the self-rewarding dopamine spike along the way. So you're starting here to get to here, but you need to actually praise yourself along the way. Otherwise, where's the incentive for your brain to want to continue? Because your brain wants to be safe. Your brain likes reward. Your brain wants to learn things. It wants to keep it locked in because your brain wants safety. It wants to conserve energy to put it into your bodily processes. So it wants to make things more reflexive, not I need to think about doing this action, this action, this action. So the dopamine hit helps reinforce that. It's like the oxytocin hit, the high hit. It's that's what you want to do. Now, back to identities. I started off as like a bodybuilder, for example. I was doing figure. I found it really hard and it stressed me out to then let go of what was bringing me down and the identity I had of someone who lifts pretty decent weights, being shredded and striated and veiny and looking all cool, which was what I wanted back then. I don't want it now, but that was what I wanted back then. So that was my identity. And I found it hard to actually let go of what was sabotaging me, the habits that I had. I wanted to break so many habits, but I couldn't break them. I couldn't because they were serving me in a way. They were serving a purpose. You can't break habits that somehow serve a purpose. I'm going to get you to talk about this one later. You can't break habits that somehow, without you realizing, because you don't always realize, they're still somehow serving a purpose. And I didn't think they were because I was just killing myself for the fact that I couldn't change. I was like sad and stressed, everything, because I couldn't change. I couldn't change, but it's because they were serving the value, the purpose of this is giving me that dopamine hit of, okay, people are seeing me as this, and I'm actually getting the feedback from it. So you need to be careful and filter that through. Anyway, I let go of that identity and then became
relevant to the identity thing though. We should kind of touch on the fact that like our values, our personal values, kind of like almost create our identity, in the sense that you obviously like being aware of what your values are would allow you to recognize, like, in that instance, like, okay, you personally highly value probably things like growth, achievement, success, discipline, whatever else. And so bodybuilding was something that really allowed you to uphold those values. And so until you started to maybe find some other things that also allowed you to fulfill those values, you were going to find it very difficult to change from that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now, obviously, I know things like running. Obviously, you did some powerlifting for a long time, but things like running, and probably also, I would say, things like being a coach, being a leader, being someone who inspires others, like what you do with your clients allows you to uphold those values such that you don't feel like you have to get them through bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So until you find some other way to fulfill the values, you're going to continue to default back to the thing that's currently letting you fulfill those values. Do you know what I mean? So
that's amazing. That is amazing. Like, this is the key part. This is the key part in it all. Like, that's the thing. Like, what you just said then was honestly probably the gold in this whole conversation, because I didn't even realize that myself until you said it. It wasn't like there was like the values there. That's exactly me. I like growth. I like discipline. To me, having discipline, having self-control, being so oomph on myself, to me, that's freedom, because it allows me to control my body. It allows me to be in charge of me, have structure, have routine in a way that allows me freedom outside of that. And I actually feel abundance through that, because I'm allowing myself that. Okay, I'm in charge of this part of my life. Everything else is there. But then I'm going to talk about those identities then shifted into my body, into my powerlifting. I was still growing through that. I was pushing myself through that. I was disciplined. I had to showcase my inner strength, and I was being a leader in that, and I was learning through it. But now something that just came to mind with the running, as soon as you mentioned running, the value that I was always neglecting, where something always felt like it was missing. I never had something that was more like a hobby, that was more like something that was outside of the gym in a way that still filled me up the same way. So I hated running so much. And I would say to you all the time, I'm like, I want to eat as much food as you do, but I don't want to run. Running's bleh. But it was a challenge for me. I was forced to run pretty much during COVID, and I had to let go of that powerlifting identity. I didn't feel like I was sold to it. I was actually struggling to do my prep for the last pro roll before COVID happened. So I was actually, as much as I was devastated, I was actually really happy that COVID canceled my powerlifting. I wasn't sold on it. But it made me realize that something was missing, because I wasn't able to put in that discipline and that oomph to actually lift the bar the way that I would with the mindset. But the running is a challenge. I like being mindful, and like with lifting, there's entertainment in a way, because you're following the program, you're doing reps.
I feel the same. Lifting, like, it's not as monotonous. You know what I mean? Like, running is like obviously very monotonous, so you can kind of zone out a bit, or you're not as focused on the skill. Whereas with lifting, you're obviously very concentrating on the technique, on the skill, and there's different. Obviously, like, there's a bunch of different movements you're doing. With running, it's just like the same thing over and over again for however long, and so there isn't as much of a need to focus. I put up that post about flow states the other day. Well, lifting's a perfect example. Running kind of, but lifting more so, because when you're in the middle of a set, especially like the last 5 or 6 reps, like, all you can think about is that task, and you're like, it's challenging, but you're purely present in it. Whereas running, like, that's one of the strengths of running, is that it's kind of like a moving meditation, but at the same time, it's also, I think, why a lot of people get bored with running, because it's like 30 minutes to just be stuck inside your own head. Now, personally, I like 30 minutes inside my own head. Like, I've learned to really like being inside it. I think a lot more people could benefit from having fucking 30 minutes inside their own head and not distracting themselves with phones, as we've all fallen into the trap of doing in recent times. I've found that I'm like, the biggest shift for me with not being like stressed and anxious anymore was that, like, I'm not constantly distracting myself from my own thoughts. Do you know what I mean? With phone,
See, yeah,
doing this.
that's why I love running, because it's my challenge, because I'm always thinking about a million things to do with business and to do with other things. It's forcing me. I realize I have podcasts in my ear when I do my long runs, not when I do like sprints and stuff, because that to me is freaking, you're killing me, Luke. But when I do my long runs, I listen to the podcast, but I'm not listening to it sometimes because my mind starts to drift and I start to think about all the things I usually think. So it's a challenge for me, and I love challenge. So that's upholding my value of pushing myself to do uncomfortable things and growing through it, because I did that 6-7 years ago when I started lifting. That was uncomfortable to me. And I pushed myself through a lot of stuff, but now it's become more of my identity and who I just am. I freaking love training. Like, I have a bad session, I'll leave it at the gym. It doesn't impact me anymore because it's just what I do to enhance the rest of my life. It enhances my life in so many ways. Like, I can actually open a freaking pasta thing now, whereas before I couldn't open the thing. I'd get someone else to open it for me. I can carry like a million shopping bags. It's like, what does this give me for my life? This gives me the ability to chase after my children. This gives me the ability to blah, blah, blah. But
that's really
when
important.
it comes to the...
People can, yeah. I was going to say, people can be super clear on like that, like pretty much, like almost like the simplest kind of process we can ever go through for like motivation to do any, not motivation, but something to get us to do something is like have a very clear link in mind between doing X and the things that we value most highly. So like if someone's a parent and they're struggling with consistency with exercise, they probably, or something that would really help would be building a stronger connection in their head of how them doing their training is directly benefiting their kids or directly benefiting their relationship with their kids. Do you know what I mean? So rather than viewing it as like this extra, time in the week that's stressing them out, they need to have a clear connection in mind of how them being on top of their health and fitness, at least like reasonably, you don't have to be like in the gym every day, whatever, but like how them doing some training or doing some exercise or whatever is directly impacting the thing that's most important to them, which is their kids. So it's like, is it setting a good example for their kids? Yes. Is it helping them be kinder and more patient and more generous and whatever with their kids? Yes. Like they need to stack up. It's called linking. John DeMartini explains this. It's like, it's linking, taking, okay, what's the thing that you're like not all that motivated to do? What's the thing that's most important to you in life? And then you need to stack up like 100 reasons why doing this is going to directly benefit the thing that's most important to you. In that instance, their kids. You know what I mean? So they don't, like, let's say that this person is not like you and me. Like they don't inherently enjoy exercise. Hopefully we can get them to find some enjoyment in exercise. But let's say for now, let's just say for now, like they just hate exercise. They just don't like it. Right? And they can't seem to find like a good enough intrinsic motivation to do it with values and all that stuff. Fair enough. But at least if they can see a direct link between doing some form of activity and like helping the things they really care about, like their kids or their partner, it's like if you have a clear link in mind, like, oh, if I exercise more, like my moods are better and whatever, and that, like improves my relationship with my partner. If your partner is the most important thing in life, then you can see a link between exercise, training. This applies to literally anything. Like whatever thing it is that we kind of know we probably should be doing, but we're not doing it, we need to see a link between doing it and our highest priorities. And that's almost like the simplest two-step motivation process ever. What do I need to do? How is it going to benefit the thing I care about?
Yes. I love that thing. I want to use it one more time before we end this one, and then we'll do the next one in another podcast. The thinging when it, like, because we know from what we've studied, it benefits our health, like our health markers in itself. But then when you were a PT, like the cholesterol and stuff, like that thinging thing. But then when you were a PT, realizing how many people came to you with shitty posture and how much that affected their life. So maybe that would be a really good note to actually end on for how certain things actually really improve your life in ways that we never even imagined. Thinking.
Yeah. I've sort of just come to think of it as do we view something as time invested or time as an expense? So when we have something that we can't really be bothered doing, we obviously view it as like, that's time I don't really want to spend. Time is like a currency to us, right? If we have something that we can't really be stuff doing, it's like, I don't really want to spend my time and energy or invest my time and energy in that particular thing. because it feels like it, I'm not getting enough return on investment. Whereas if we can stack up mentally all of the reasons why investing that 30, 45 minutes an hour in, let's say, exercise like a couple times a week, but anything that we want more motivation for, if we can see a strong enough reason why investing in that is directly benefiting our personal values and our highest priorities, then we've got enough mental leverage to go and do it. Do you know what I mean? And the simple reason, if we're not doing something, we don't value it highly enough. There's no two ways around it. And so we need to stack up the values as to why it's worth doing that thing. And then hopefully along the way, start to actually enjoy the process. Hopefully someone who doesn't enjoy exercise eventually gets to the point where they're like, oh, I actually feel really good when I do this, and I'm starting to see some progress. We spoke before a little bit about the dopamine thing. Like the more ways we can actually see that we're getting somewhere, because we need, as I just said, we need to see that we're getting a return on investment. If someone spends a month, how often do you have this with clients? I'm sure you have it all the time, where they send you their check-in photos and you can see that they look, like a lot's changed, or you can see that their lifts are going up. You can see that they're getting more independent with their nutrition. You personally can see 100 different ways that they're progressing, but they're fixated on what's not happening. They're fixated on I'm still not happy with what I'm seeing in the mirror, whatever. And you're trying to get them, hang on. That's going to be a slow process, but can you not appreciate the difference from here to here? We need to be tracking progress or keeping an eye on how much you've progressed in as many ways as possible. Stack up dopamine, my moods are better, my sleep's better. I've got all of these things. That's also why it's really important that why a lot of people really need to shift their mindset in the gym from exercise, from just this is a means to an end. This is a means to muscle growth, fat loss, whatever, to actually enjoying the activity itself, because they can see that their technique's getting better, their reps, they're going up in reps and weight, and they feel fitter. They have a focus on 100 different ways that things are progressing. And it's not just this is a painful 30 minutes that's a means to an end. Some days maybe it is, but there needs to be some intrinsic enjoyment in the process, or you're never going to remain consistent.
I love that. I think that's a really good note to end this one on, because I think the next episode we do tomorrow should be all about the growth mindset, the dopamine hit, a little bit more of how neurology plays into it, and also how we can actually get ourselves to do the things that we're struggling to do. How a lot of people are focusing on the negative stuff instead of rewarding themselves along the way, and things you can do and things you can add to your life to actually make you successful in your pursuit for anything. Because it's not just about what you need to do, but it's also about what you need to stop doing. And at the same time, it's not just about what's happening in your life right now, but also what's not happening in your life right now. So we're going to bring up a lot more about social influences, our environment, how we can work around our lifestyle and people that mean a lot to us. We're going to talk a lot about involving others, influences, and keeping promises to ourselves, and how much that means to the end thing, the negative focus. The promises to ourselves is a really big one that Tom is really, really passionate about. And like I said, the growth mindset. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow, same time. So hope you liked it. If you have anything that you want to ask, I'm going to post this as an IGTV, so you can leave comments, questions, and thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ruby. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.